Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. This is the second part of update number 27. As you know, update 27 was all about my JMRI panel and what I was trying to do to create a dispatch or a dispatcher situation. So what you're looking at right here is what eventually will become the dispatcher office. And it's basically just this room in the back of our house that we have set up as an office that we barely use. So this is on the main floor. The layout is obviously in the basement. This is far away. It's like in the back of the house from the main floor. So even though I'm using Wi-Fi throughout the house, it's not really that strong back here. So like I mentioned in the original update, I've been able to wire the entire house with Cat6 connections that all lead down to the basement to a central panel that allow me to network everything in the house. And even though originally it was set up just for internet, just so we can hardwire any desktop or anything right to the central router, in this case, we're not using it that way. I'm just basically running a wire from the downstairs laptop through the walls to this laptop here. So it's a hard connection, which is a lot more reliable than Wi-Fi. And I'm glad I was able to figure out how to do that using what they call remote desktop, but it's not within the internet. It's just within the house. So there's no risk of people, tapping into my laptop and stuff. Anyways, let me just show you what's going on here. So obviously you have your desk, which has plenty of room for paperwork or whatever you have to put down here. It will be literally just this panel and then just another panel that I'm going to add later, but not the laptop. The only reason why the laptop is open right now is because I don't have another mouse and another keyboard to control this, but eventually, I'll have some wireless type mouse and keyboard to control that. I also have my throttle here, my Wi-Fi throttle, which I'm hoping will reach down to the basement because it looks like I have a Wi-Fi signal there, but it's it's a little weak, but we'll see. And then of course I'm going to get more two-way radios to be able to communicate with the crews downstairs. But yeah, so I'm using this as a control panel. So this is acting as a vehicle. It's just a vehicle for the downstairs computer to translate everything to this panel. So there's a hard wire, there's an Ethernet wire down here. Sorry about the lighting, it's dark down here. Right there. So that's where it's coming out of the wall. And then it's plugged into the back of this computer. And from there, I have it hooked up through HDMI to this panel so you can see it bigger and more clear. So, basically the idea is that the dispatcher would be up here controlling JMRI, but then the second display that I was talking about will be hooked up also through Ethernet so that you can see the cameras that are in staging. So when you're, if there's just one dispatcher and they're dispatching the staging yard, they can actually see the trains moving live on the cameras here while they're seeing it on the block detection there. So that'll be a little bit of like peace of mind. So that the trains are coming out of staging without any problems. And then the other thing is that I have cameras in the helix, so that's the other tricky spot that's kind of blind. So you'll be able to see that also in the display here for the dispatcher. With that said, the display is also going to be downstairs. So there's going to be a main TV downstairs on the wall that the crew can see their trains exiting, any blind areas like staging and the helix as well. So that'll be helpful in many ways. So what I'm going to try to do today, since I'm here by myself and I'm just testing all this stuff out, is that I'm going to try to take the train that's sitting on the third level, which is this train here. So the label I made here for this train has the lead locomotive on the left side, which is 9580, and the trailing locomotive is on the back end. Now I also added a third locomotive in the middle, but I just haven't updated the label here. But there's a CN Gevo sitting in the middle of these two locomotives. So we're going to follow it along. We're still heading north in this direction up to Plattsburgh, which is the furthest point north on the layout. And then that's where the return loop is, and we start heading south again. Even though we're bypassing these two cities, we're kind of, when you head south, you're going to go right to Ticonderoga. Whereas if you were heading north, you would have to go through Port Henry and come around to Plattsburgh. But it's a layout, so it's just the way the reverse loop works here. So let's see if we can actually get the train running. So I'm literally like running blind here, which is a little scary, but let's see if we don't have any accidents. So I selected the locomotives here. I know where I am because I know my layout, but let's see if I start moving, what happens. And I'm gonna try to take it easy, especially up there. But I know that if I run it at about 25 to 30, that's a decent speed where I can reliably stop the train if if something happens. Of course, I won't know until something crashes, but I don't have anything else on the track with the exception of one train that's sitting right here on the siding. So we're obviously lined up to bypass that. And I've already changed the turnout here to take us into the other track. If something goes wrong and there's a derailment, I'll see, it just moved. So that means the train is traveling north right now. So now we're in this block, so I'm gonna move my label over to here. But if something were to happen where there's a short circuit, which is usually what happens when you derail a train, everything would turn red. Everything would show as occupied. And that's kind of like a safety feature, which helps you detect major problems. So my goal right now is just to get past Plattsburgh because this is the scariest point on the actual physical layout. It's just a very narrow passage there. Now the reason why you're seeing this here flashing is because it's a long train, and the last car has resistors on it. So it's picking up, it probably came from here and it jumped into this block, so it's picking up that last car. And the reason it's flashing is because when you have one car with resistors, it's not enough to keep the track, red the entire time like locomotives would. So you'll see that as this moves to the next block, then that's going to do the same thing behind it. Ideally, I'm going to have resistors on every car on the layout, so it'll pick up the entire train rather than just the front and the back. So you can see right there, we just got into Plattsburgh's block, and now we're heading downhill to get to the connecting point here. This is a junction point here, and you can see the back car is still doing its thing. It's a little cement car, so it's short and it doesn't have a lot of pull from the current, so that's why it's flashing. So I'm gonna move my label over. What I like is that the train is moving at a normal clip right now, and not too fast, not too slow, and it's taken a long time to get from block to block, which is more realistic than if these blocks were lighting up like a Christmas tree, while the train was moving. So hopefully we'll make it to the helix here, and I wish I had my camera set up so I can see it enter the helix live, but we don't have that set up just yet. I have to get some adapters that basically turn the video signal into Ethernet and then back over to either HDMI or VGA for that second panel. But anyways, that'll come later. So I'm just praying right now that we enter the helix and that we make it through without any major catastrophes. So I'm going to give it a little more time. If I see that this doesn't light up soon, I'm going to have to stop this video and go see what kind of disaster has happened downstairs. But 3 locomotives is not something you want to see crashing. I think at this point we're pretty safe as far as anything hitting the floor, because I do have guards up right behind this last curve where if something happens, it'll just kind of lean up against it or just catch it. But yeah, looks like we have success here. With we just entered the helix. The little car is still in the back. I'm gonna move my label. So now we are heading down on the helix, and the helix is short. It's only 2 loops, so we should be out of that block. You know, I mean, it's still going to take a little time, but it's not going to be a tremendous amount of time. And that's one of the things I always wanted on my layout. I didn't want the helixes to be so long that you lose the train for, like, 20 minutes inside a helix. I wanted to just be, I wanted to feel like just like another block. And I think I've gotten to that point. So as we wait for that next block to light up at the Ticonderoga, which would be the next town, I also want you to notice that there's another train I forgot to mention sitting in Saratoga Springs on the main. So we're going to bypass by going on the siding here. I have it lined up already. And the train that's sitting in Albany over here is on the CSX line. So, I'm not worried about it. There's also another train sitting in Schenectady on the second main. And the reason why you see all of this lit up right now and all the way around is because I was just trying to show the dispatcher how this connects. I think eventually I might be able to just delete the dashed lines on the bottom here, because, obviously if you come out of here, maybe I could just do a segment that goes that way like this and stops there. The next connection point would be here, but I don't want to. It's just to make it simpler for the dispatcher to see. Okay, so we just got into Ticonderoga. Ticonderoga has just a curve in it, but it's protected by some scenery that I've done. Not scenery, but just basically pink foam that I've put there. So we shouldn't see any trains hit the floor there. But there is a turnout coming, which is a little bit of a nerve-wracking curve here right before we hit the yard. It's actually on this side, so that's when we exit the yard. So once we get into Whitehall, which I believe is one word, by the way. I don't know why I did it with 2 words. Must have been a late night. But now that we're in Whitehall, this is going to be a yard here, a small transfer yard. So there's going to be a few more tracks up here. And this is going to be passing siding. I just haven't, the track doesn't exist yet. So that's why you don't see these turnouts, showing any particular direction. They're just going to show in both directions. So they haven't been set up yet. Also, every control point will have signals just like these and these and these, except that these are physically there. These are not, and they're all showing green because I haven't updated them. But they were working, and they're working basically through detection. They're not working physically because they're not there. But we're moving along here nicely. So we just entered, this is the curve I'm talking about. So if we can make it to Fort Edward here, I'd be very happy. But right now we're in that curve, and this is basically where the gate is. So we're crossing the second level gate right in front of the laundry room. The laundry room's sitting right here. So as we head south, there we go. It's a short, it's a short block. So I'm glad we made it to Fort Edward. Now we're in what would be the most industrial area that I have on the layout. There's a lot of industry here. There's going to be a big cement plant. There's going to be a paper company. There's going to be gravel, also a chemical company. So it's a long siding, but it's split into 2 halves, as you can see here. And they did include a crossover so that I can have, if there's a train that's short enough, I can bypass the short train. In other words, if there's a train sitting here just doing work, I can take the train heading north and just bypass it, or sitting here rather. I can bypass that way. You're seeing this as occupied because I have my turnouts added to whatever line is being occupied. So this is actually split in half. So you'll see when this train enters the junction point here, not the junction point, but the exit point here. The bottom part of this crossover should turn white because it's connected to this turnout. So once we get Shorty over here, past all that stuff, you'll see it happen. So we're just making our way past the second part of the siding. As you can see, it's pretty long because it's taking a long time, and there we are. And you can see that turned white because Shorty hasn't made it to the side of the, so now it turned red, of the section. All right, so now, again, this part of the turnout is lit up because it's connected to the main line. And the reason I have it that way is because you can't go anywhere anyway. So I rather detect it from the single track side. And then once we get into the siding, it'll turn off because then you have an option of either moving that train or moving this train. But when there's a train here, you can't move either train. So that's why I have it set up that way. So we just enter that way, moving the label across. Now we're in the actual siding. We're going around this D&H train that has 3 locomotives, 601, 609, and 608. And these signals are actually working. So you can see that the red dropped here. We had a green on the bottom, which indicates diverging. And now it dropped to red. And now we have a green set up because we have a clear line here. And you can see that this signal is protecting the traffic that's coming in because there's a train here and there's a train here. So there's no way anybody can come up, heading north with 2 trains blocking. So that's why you got a double red here. But over here, you have a green. And if I move this turnout, this would turn green and this would turn red. So here comes Shorty trailing along here. It's about to get into the siding. It probably just did because this is solid red now and there's nothing else going on. This siding is not as long as Fort Edward, but it is pretty long. It could still hold like 20 to 25 cars. This is more like 30 cars and more like 12 to 15 on each half, obviously. So, all right, so now that we're in this block, you can see that we knocked this one down to red, but this turned green because it's ABS. And the automatic block detection sees that there's a clear line here, but the turnout is on the diverging track. So this is the only possibility we have right now. This train, even though it's clear here, it can't go on because the turnout is not moved. And like I just said before, if I change the turnout to the main line, then this would turn green so that, it would show that there was a connecting point there. So now we just entered the second block, and I think I explained this. You can see it just turned green there because now we can. If I decided to back up the train, or if there's a train actually heading in the other direction, it would have a clear path here. See, everything's clear now, and this Shorty messing things up in the back there. But the reason I split this into 2 blocks is because, and the reason why I have the signal on the ladder block is because there's a road here, and what I want right here, and what I wanted to do is have that crossing protected by the signal, so that if there's traffic up here, let's say there are 2 trains waiting to head north. If a train's coming from behind here, heading north also, there's no point in having it wait here, because it would be fouling up the road. So rather than doing that, I have a long stretch of track all throughout here that I can just sit here and wait, let the traffic go through, the gates could stay up, and then head into the next block. So this is where all the bridges are. There's a curved bridge that goes over the double CSX line, and then there's a what do you call those things? Trestle? I don't know. The ones that look like they're wrapping around the entire train, and it's over a large river, crossing over a large river, with CSX parallel to that bridge. So let's see. So all right. So we should be getting down to the gate. All these crossovers right here are the gate. And what I really wanted to do, but I think I'm going to skip that, is that I wanted to cross over to the CSX line and take you around this loop, but I don't trust myself with that yet. So as you can see, we just crossed the gate. We're past the gates now, and now we're in the reversing section, which is a very long section of single track that is meant to basically flip the current between AB or BA for the reversing loop, which actually happens in here, but the actual current change happens on the single track. So this is going to be a pretty long section, and we're heading into the staging yard, which is down here. The way the staging yard is set up, I think I showed you that in the actual update, is the innermost tracks are 1, and then as you work your way out to the outside of the circle, the numbers increase. So all my inbound trains always take the diverging route, and then there's a long lead that you would also be able to see on the camera right here. That's the first thing you would see on the camera. So you can see that if there's any trains coming up, they could wait here while this train comes in, and then they'd have the clear signal to enter the layout. But let's see if our train makes it into the lead here. If it does, then we're in the clear to enter track 4, which is what I have everything lined up for. And by the way, I can switch turnouts. I'll show you an example. I'm going to just turn this back to the main line from here. So right now that's switched downstairs. Any turnout is controlled from here. So there's no, nothing on the main line that can't be controlled from here. All right, so we just entered the yard here. I'm going to slow down a little bit because this is where all the crossovers are and all the tracks for the throat are. So I want to make sure that we don't come in too hot. But there's still a little time before we enter all these turnouts here. So, by the way, I didn't include. You see how this is black here? I didn't include these turnouts because it's confusing. Once we enter this lead, everything here would be red, and then if there's trains occupying, those are also red. Like for example, this guy right here. The reason why you see this flashing right now is because there's only one locomotive on the track and it's not moving. The lights are off, there's no sound or anything, so it doesn't have enough resistance to make the detection light up. All right, so we just entered track 4, the beginning of track 4. And as you can see, we have a green signal here. And that's telling me that the second half of the staging of that track is available. So I'm actually going to take it all the way into the next track so you can see that turn red, because what that's telling the following train that comes behind it is that you can pull in to track 4, but you have to stop in the middle. Now the only way to do that is to actually look at the cameras. That's why I have a display downstairs also, because you would not be able to see that center point unless you were looking at the cameras. But there is a signal that's actually inside the track that literally turns green and red for the crew to see as they control the train. There's Shorty right at the end, so he hasn't actually made it into the track yet, into the 4 track yet. But this will probably enter the next section. This will turn red before Shorty makes it all the way in. So let's see if that's the case. As you can see, these are the outbound. That's a D, not an I. I don't know why I cut off the D. But that's the only weird thing that's happening. It's that the labels are, for some reason, getting cut off at the end. Maybe I'll add spaces, and that might help. But we'll see. For some reason, these are fine, but these are not. I don't know. I'll play around with that. All right, so we just entered the second half of the staging yard, which is basically where it starts to make the loop around the peninsula. It's like under that large mountain that I have there. That's the midway point. And so I'm going to let it go a little bit. In fact, I'm going to let it go until we get to the outbound lead. So I'm going to change this turnout here, which allows access to the lead. And then I'm just going to stop it in the lead just to make sure that we made it all the way around. So it looks like Shorty made it into the back of the train here. And now he's about to exit the first half of track 4, which will then make this available again. and all you'll see is the train sitting here on track 4 until obviously we go back into the layout. But at this point, if I had the camera here with the display here with the cameras, I could see where all these trains are sitting. I could literally see the front of the locomotives sitting there, and then I could, stop the train appropriately at the right place, and then pull out a second train or whatever, or just move one of these trains or whatever I want to do. So this is kind of fun, even just by myself here. Even though it would be a lot more interesting with people controlling this, but we'll see what happens. Eventually, what I'd like to see is that I'm able to have friends and family control this from their house remotely. But I'm still working on how to do that without putting my computer at risk of hacking and stuff like that. I know there's ways of doing it through. There's like an IP address thing, but then there's like ways to like tunnel it so that you can't even see the IP address online. All right, so we just entered the lead. I'm going to go ahead and stop the train. So that should be coming to a nice easy stop. I will have to pull the train out anyway before I turn the layout off, because all these turnouts will reset, and I don't want them to be thrown under the middle of the train. So same deal is happening here. You can see that this turned white, and maybe there's a way to fix this, but right now I don't know why that's happening, with the exception of the fact that there's not a lot of power being asked of the train. But you'll see if I move the train forward a little bit, how that turns red immediately. And maybe it's just a dirty track or something, but let's see if that, see? So now it's red because the train's moving. Maybe not. Oh, I think we're still sitting on the turnouts. Maybe that's what the problem is, because I have 3 locomotives on there, so it really should not be doing that. And just in case, I'm going to just flip this, and let's see if I can. I'm actually going to pull it out all the way into the layout, just to be clear of the yard. And let's see if that, see, as long as the train's moving, it's fine. And I've never had a problem with 3 locomotives. It's always been just with 1. Like number 3 over here is sitting there and it's not showing, detection. So I got to see what's going on with that. Maybe I just have to solder the wires, because nothing's really soldered yet. So it might be just a loose connection. But we'll see. So here's Shorty back here flashing away. And we just entered the layout once again. And we're heading back north into Schenectady, which would be this area here. I still have to label some things that I forgot, but at least I know it's working, and I know that the train made it down here without derailing or falling off the layout, so that's outstanding news. We'll wait for Shorty to stop flashing his lights, and it should be getting out of this block very soon. I'm going to move my label up to here, because this is kind of like where I'm going to stop it. The train is about, I would say, 25 cars, maybe a little longer, maybe 27. But this lead, this entire reversing section can hold like probably 50 or 55 cars. So I know that even when Shorty stops his flashing over here, I'll still have plenty of headroom before I actually get to the gate. So I'm going to stop it before I get there. Just waiting for this to clear up. Like I said, that's Shorty. Let's see if he is able to clear soon. I think that might be it. All right, so again, I'm going to bring the train to a stop here. 0, and that's basically what I've been working on. So it's already functional. Like I can have a dispatching situation, and I can have a few people controlling trains downstairs. There's not a lot of room for movement, because I only have basically 1, 2, and eventually 3 sidings here. But there's going to be other sidings added, like for example at the top of Port Henry here, this is a very, very long track. This you could probably get 40 or 50 cars in here. And that's going to be a siding that's going to act also as staging. And I'll probably do the same thing I did here, where I'll have a crossover in the middle in case you have a shorter train. You can kind of like manage trains better. I might even add a third track, but you know, it's up high and I don't want it to be too wide as far as the bench work goes. So I might just leave it with just 2 very long tracks for that siding, which is kind of neat because if you look up on Google Maps, Port Henry has kind of like a 2 or 3 track siding. It's not like a full yard right before the train station. So it kind of makes sense. And I'm looking to do the same thing. It's going to be Port Henry siding, and then it's going to be the train station right here, right after the turnout. So that's kind of neat. All right, so it looks like we're in good shape here. Everything seems to be functioning. So I'm going to leave the video right here, and hopefully the next time we visit this room, there'll be more of a setup than just this basic bare bones stuff. All right, hope you enjoyed it.